Hi guys. So I know there was a few people who were absent today because they were at Model UN, and so I wanted to create a short video that went over the content that you're going to be missing. The agenda is up here, and we're going to skip over doing our mindfulness practice and our check-in for today, with you guys at least. And I want to move into the heart of what we're talking about, which is an intro into argumentation. Specifically, we're talking about what a thesis is, and we're creating our own as practice. The homework will be to rewatch The Hedgehog and the Fog film, which everyone did previously. And when you're done, you're going to create and submit a new 1 to 2 sentence thesis that answers the following prompt. How does Hedgehog change from the beginning of the film to the end, and what causes him to change? And hopefully you'll be able to do that task more adequately after this lesson. So the first thing we're covering is what is a thesis. This word may or may not be familiar to people depending on the instruction that you got when you were in middle school. When you were writing a thesis, this is also sometimes called a claim. We are talking about the main argument or main point that you're going to explore or prove in a piece of writing. Usually the thesis is 1 to 2 sentences long, and it usually will directly answer all part of the prompt the teacher gives you. Now in the future, you may not give a prompt, you may just be asked to create an argument about a certain topic. But for this unit, as we're practicing writing thesis statements, I will normally provide you with a prompt. And so your thesis should be an answer to that prompt, the argument that is the response to whatever prompt you were given. So for example, if the prompt was, who is the true hero of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and why? Your goal is to create a 1 to 2 sentence response that answers both the who and the why of this prompt. So you might say something along the lines of, in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the true hero is Hermione Granger because her bravery, intellect, and resourcefulness repeatedly saved Harry and Ron's life. So here we have a very clear answer to who is the true hero. And we also have a clear answer to why is this person the true hero. Now you may not agree with this statement, but that's not really the point of a thesis statement. A thesis is your personal argument, what you are going to try to prove. So now that we have a sense of what a thesis is, a good question that follows is what makes a strong thesis? And this is something you will practice not just this year, but you're going to practice this throughout high school. Creating stronger and stronger arguments is one of the main goals of what we call analytical writing, writing in which you are taking a text and you are making an argument about it by looking closely. So in order to know if you've made a strong thesis, some of the questions that you might ask yourself are, 1, does my thesis answer all parts of the prompt? 2, does it have at least 2 of the following, a what, a how, or a why? 3, is it debatable? Could anyone disagree with this? Or is this something that's just a fact that no one would really disagree with? And 4, can it be supported by evidence? So returning back to the prompt that we had, to the sample thesis that we had in response to the prompt about Harry Potter, we see that we have a very clear response to the who and the why that were asked, and it answers all parts of the prompt. It's also something which someone could disagree with. Someone might say that the true hero is Harry, for example. I mean, his name is the one in the title. Someone might say it's Ron. Someone might say it's Neville. Someone might say there is no true hero. It's a totally collaborative effort. But here, there's a clear argument that someone might agree with or disagree with. And then the final criteria we're looking for is, can it be supported with evidence? So this person says that Hermione's bravery, intellect, and resourcefulness are what make her hero. You'd be thinking to yourself, are there moments from the book or from the movie series that would help me back up these claims? And I can think, yes, yes, yes. I can clearly know there are moments in the text in which her bravery, her intelligence, and her resourcefulness are on display. So this thesis really meets all of my criteria of what makes a strong thesis statement. In class, when we meet, we're going to have time to practice. We're going to have time practicing with creating thesis statements. And again, this is going to be something that we return to throughout the year. But one of the questions that I'm going to pose to class to try to make a thesis statement around is a pretty simple one. And that is, what is the best season and why? Alternatively, some people might choose to answer, what is the worst season and why? So if I were going to make an argument in response to this prompt, if I was going to create a thesis in response to this prompt, I might say something along the lines of, fall is the best season because it's the time of year that makes us appreciate the fragility of life. Again, I'm answering all of the questions, all the parts of this question. I have the what and I have the why included here. And I'm also making an argument that could be disagreed with. Now, whether or not there's evidence, textual evidence to support this is a little harder to say because I'm not actually writing about a book here, but nevertheless, I could talk about the way that the leaves are falling off and the way that makes us think of the cycles of life. I could talk about the waning hours of the day and the way that makes us think about how eventually all lives come to a close. So there's some evidence that I can give to back up this thesis. So this is a strong thesis. Alternatively, if I wanted to argue about the worst season, I chose fall again here, I might say that fall is the worst season because the hours of light begin to wane, the leaves start falling off, and it's getting colder. So this is actually the same evidence that I used for my first point, but now I'm going to talk about why these things are bad, why this makes fall the worst season. And whatever you choose is fine. In fact, this is just highlighting the fact that this is a very arguable thesis, because someone could argue on either side, either that fall's the best or fall's the worst, and they might be right depending on what evidence that they choose to use and how they choose to explain that evidence. In terms of homework for tonight, you're going to be creating a thesis statement about Hedgehog and the Fog. So I asked people to watch the film, and a lot of people filled out very preliminary notes for me on what they thought this movie might be about and how they think Hedgehog might change. These were very, very cursory, kind of superficial first attempts at it. For tonight's homework, I want you to actually rewatch the film. Sometimes 2 or 3 watches can be really useful when you're making an argument, and then to answer the following prompt in 1 to 2 sentences. How does Hedgehog change from the beginning of the film to the end, and what causes him to change? So in order to answer that question in a thesis statement, you're probably going to need 1 to 2 sentences, and you're going to want to make sure you answer both parts, both the how he changes and what causes him to change. To help you do that, I've included some potential sentence starters here. So you might say something along the lines of, at the beginning of Hedgehog and the Fog, Hedgehog is blah, blah, blah. As a result of blah, 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 he becomes blah, blah, blah. So he goes from A to B as a result of this other thing. Alternatively, you might try, in the film, Hedgehog goes from blah to blah, and this change happens because of blah. However you format it, you can use these sentence starters or you cannot. The key here is to come up with a thesis that answers both parts of the prompt in a very concrete and succinct way. So rewatch, you'll create your thesis, you'll resubmit, or not resubmit, but you'll submit it to the appropriate place on Google Classroom, and then you are done. Take care of yourselves, and see you soon.